All right, so today we are going to go from slope-intercept form back to standard form. So we've already done standard form into slope-intercept form. So now we're doing the opposite on how do we get back to that standard form that we started with. All right, so here we have a few notes that I recommend writing down. At the top of your paper, I would recommend writing down, if you didn't in the last slide, slope-intercept to standard. That should be at the top of your paper today. All right, so we're going to go from that y equals mx plus b that we have known to love and bring it back to our standard form, ax plus by equals c. Now there's a couple things that you need to know. First, we need to move the x and the y to the same side. So notice that y is by itself and x is over here on the right-hand side when we're dealing with slope-intercept. Well, now we want x and y on the exact same side of the equal sign. And I think it was mentioned last time, but a, b, and c are just integers. Okay, so they're just positive or negative whole numbers. Okay, so a, b, and c, they don't really mean anything like they do, like m means slope for us over here, and lowercase b means y-intercept. Capital A, capital B, capital C don't really mean anything to us in standard form. Okay, so we want to get that x and y to the same side. We also want to make sure that the a number is positive. Okay, and that's kind of key. That's one thing that we tend to forget about when we're going back to standard form. Okay, so I do have an example here of my slope-intercept form, y equals negative 2x plus 10. Notice that I just added the 2 over to the other side to move it out of the way. Okay, so now I have my x and my y together on the left-hand side. And notice that my a value would be 2, and 2 is positive. Okay, so this is a correct standard form. Okay, because that a needs to be positive. All right, let's go through a few examples. Example number 1. All right, I want to get my x and my y to the same side because they're asking for standard form. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 3x over to the other side. So now I have negative 3x plus y equals positive 4. Okay, my x and my y are on my same side, but is my a value positive or negative? Hopefully you're saying, well, it's negative. Okay, in order to change that to a positive number, we are going to divide everything by negative 1. Okay, so now I have a positive 3x, I have a negative y, and I have a negative 4. So now my a value is positive, so I know that I'm in standard form. So I can rewrite this as 3x minus y equals negative 4. When you're determining what the slope and the y-intercept are, it's easiest if you go back to the original slope-intercept form. Okay, because we're used to identifying slope there. So our slope would be positive 3. Okay, then I would go back again and look for the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is at positive 4. Okay, so really these are something you could fill out right away before you do your standard form. Okay, because looking here at this standard form equation, okay, it's hard to identify what the slope and the y-intercept is. Example number 2. Okay, so same process. I want to get my x and my y to the same side. So I'm going to add 2/3 x. So now I have 2/3 x plus y equals positive 5. Because these canceled out, I moved them. Okay, my a value is positive. X and my y are on the same side. So I know I'm in standard form. Again, go back to the original equation to identify the slope. Okay, the slope is the one that's always by the x, and I have negative 2/3. My y-intercept is the one that's by itself, and that's at positive 5. Okay, I'm writing my y-intercept as a coordinate point because it's a point on the graph. Right? So if I were to graph this line here, okay, positive 5, our y-intercept would be a coordinate point. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm writing it as a coordinate point. Example number 3. Okay, we're going to follow the same thing. We want to move the x over, so I'm going to subtract 1/2 x. Okay, so I have negative 1/2 x plus y equals negative 8. Now notice that my a value is negative, so we have to divide each term by -1 to change it into positive. So I have a positive 1/2 x, a negative y, and a positive 8. Okay, so now that my a is positive, oops, I want to have a negative here. Negative y equals positive 8. That's my standard form. Again, go back to the original equation to identify the slope, which was positive 1/2, and then identify the y-intercept, which is at negative 8. We're going to go through one more example. Example number 4. Okay, we're going to move the x to the other side, so it's with the y. So we now have 3x plus y equals negative 9. The a value, which is the one by the x, that is positive, so I don't have to do anything else. Okay, I'm in standard form. Go back to the original equation to identify the slope. Slope is negative 3. Notice that I'm always including the sign that's in front of the slope. And my y-intercept is at negative 9.